When you have this relationship with your team established, it reduces the stress off of the doctor. It provides an ability to create exceptional customer experience on a consistent basis for the patient, which is what organically grows your practice at the end.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Raving Patients podcast. As you know, I'm your host, Dr. Len Tao. I'm super excited here to have another person I look up to in the industry, someone who I recently connected with. Today's episode is called Leadership Cultivation, Transforming Team Members into Restorative Dental Partners. My guest is Ella Mullokandova from Converge Dental. To start with, I want to read Ella's bio so everybody knows who she is and what she does in the industry. So with over 20 years of experience as a dental hygienist and restorative dental partner, Ella is deeply committed to nurturing relationships and delivering exceptional customer experiences and comprehensive dental care. Her passion for optimizing patient care and driving patient growth led to her to co-found Converge Dental to provide an organized and systematic approach to increasing practice maturity and ensuring consistent repeatability in customer experiences that maximize practice profitability. Ella is devoted to inspiring and empowering dental professionals and helping them find fulfillment in their career. So please welcome Ella to the Raving Patients podcast. Ella, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Lin. This is an amazing opportunity, and I am excited to share information with your listeners.
And that's great. I'm so glad. And obviously, as you know, they're viewing us or actually watching us and listening to us on the various podcast networks or YouTube where it's being released. So to begin with, what I want you to do before we get into really the content is talk a little bit about how you help practices. Obviously, you have a hygiene background. You do coaching and consulting as well. But can you kind of talk about, how you help practices and what you do best for them?
So I will start by saying that as a dental hygienist, I've had 20 plus years in the industry. I have always seen the puzzle pieces of how to grow a profitable practice missing. So when Converge Dental was born, this is when my partner and I came together and said, how can we simplify and streamline the dental practices and the operations in such a way that a doctor does not have to be burdened with the fact that they have so many hats that they wear and so many areas to focus on that ultimately what happens is they become overwhelmed. They cannot focus on everything that needs their attention. And so things are just not getting done, or the vision that they originally started enthusiastically in the dental field is not being fulfilled. So when Converge Dental was born, we provide what we call a model practice or a business in the box. It is basically predefined best practices that is set around the patient and providing exceptional customer experience on a consistent basis, which organically grows your practice. And in order for that to happen, when you have systems and processes in place and your focus is on team alignment and employee skill and confidence, that's when your vision comes into reality. That's when things are become less burdensome and fluidity in the practice happens. And that's how we help practices grow.
Gotcha. That makes perfect sense. So let's jump into some of the content here. The first speaking point that you want to talk about is the time that it takes to train teams. It's a significant amount of times to be restorative dental partners. So can you talk about what's required of a practice, how the best way to set it up, ensure that the investment you're making, obviously, is going to be fruitful for the practice, for the team and the doctor as well?
I always ask doctors that we work with, how would you like your co-diagnosis percentages to go up? Or treatment plan acceptance to go up, or new patient acquisition and retention to increase as well? Or even better, how would you like to not micromanage your team and have simple but very productive exams where you just come in and you confirm the findings and the patient agrees to go ahead and schedule? The answer to all of those is always yes. But then the follow-up question is, how do we do that? So customer experience from the initial interaction to retaining that lifelong customer is a result of a team effort. So a team that understands practice vision, mission, and the core values will promote dentistry or opportunity based on patients' needs, wants, desires without any hesitation. So team that places emphasis on creating trust-based relationships, acting as advocates for the patients, and promoting dentistry, though that's a team that we call a restorative dental partner. So you asking the question, what is the importance of putting emphasis on training the team to become that? Well, again, how would you like to not micromanage your team? And how would you like the team to seamlessly align and work well on a daily basis? This is why.
Got it. And, listening to what you're saying, when I was in practice, I ran a very well-oiled machine. I gave the team defined roles. They knew what their role was. And when I was not in the office, which was quite often towards the end of my career, as I was traveling, speaking, or at trade shows for Bird Eye, or doing whatever I was doing, the office still ran very well because we put those systems in place. I basically empowered the team to take on positions that were more encompassing because I trusted them and I made sure they knew that I wanted them to be able to run the practice when I wasn't there.
That's right.
I invested the time with my team to make sure they understood what I wanted them to do, and I gave them the power to do it. So I really think that's important to really help grow your practice significantly, because based on my experiences, if you don't have systems in place, nothing works real well.
That's exactly right. So how do you cultivate that leadership? The leadership comes from, number one, giving the team the ability to understand what is my true role, what are my responsibilities, what does success look like in my role, and how do I measure it? So knowing my KPIs and I can measure my performance, that's super important. And with our model practice, our job aids, for example, are visual and they're very simple. So every individual knows and can look at it at any minute or any time during the day to identify, okay, what am I doing? How am I supposed to do it? It's all predefined there for you. So number one, to create that leadership, you got to make sure you have the defined vision and mission, as I mentioned before. And then you have to make sure and you build their team's confidence. Confidence comes from knowledge. If you support your team members in being able to train them properly, number one, and then understand their motivation, understand their desires of what do they want to become a leader in. Maybe they want to be a lead assistant. Maybe they want to do a lead, a hygienist. Whatever their desire is, support them in that journey, but make sure that you provide that training. And finally, educate the team on your treatment philosophy. Nothing goes well if the team does not understand how you practice or see the mouth through your eyes, right? So the doctors need to take the time to really collaborate and calibrate with the teams so they understand, why are you proposing a treatment a certain way, or why does the patient need this when maybe another option is available? So when the team is aligned with your vision and can see things through your eyes, it's much better with the cohesion of the whole team. And then that's when the patients get a more comprehensive treatment and the team members become your brand ambassadors.
Got it. So, we're talking about cultivating and nurturing this, let's call it a partnership with the team. You want them to buy into you. You want them to understand, like I said, your goals, your vision on how you want to run the practice. So I'm curious, there are some people who think that, doctors should not be involved as much. If you have an office manager, let the office manager be involved in this process. But what do you believe in, what do you believe is a doctor's role in this particular relationship? We were talking about my event that happened in September. I'm very involved in that. The typical person who runs an event like mine, they hire a company and I'm very much involved. And I was that way in the practice, but I also understand that being the doctor, I run the show. So what should the doctor's role be in these things that we just discussed?
I think you just made a very important statement where it's important for the doctor to be involved because it's their vision. It's their idea of how they want things to run. But there are several steps to be able to increase that collaboration and co-diagnosis with the team. Number one, you want to give the team permission. Clearly define how far down the diagnostic path do you want your team to take the patients, right? Position the clinical team to create preliminary treatment plans so then you can come into the exam room and say, yes, I totally agree with Ashley because this is what we are observing. So giving your team the ability to clearly understand how far do they take that patient down that diagnostic path makes a big difference on the confidence of your team members. I know some people would say, well, we're not allowed to diagnose as hygienists or assistants or whatnot. We're not allowed to diagnose, but we are allowed to co-diagnose. Co-diagnose is the ability to observe and identify the risk factors and then be able to just present the findings to the patient and recommend a treatment option that the doctor might recommend. It's not a confirmed, this is what the doctor is going to do. It's here's what the doctor might suggest to do for whatever we are observing today. So statistics show that when a patient hears whatever findings are happening in their mouth up to 3 times in one visit, that's when they create that confidence to go ahead and schedule that treatment up front before they leave. So the first step is when they hear it from the clinical team. Second step is when they hear it from when the doctor comes in and reconfirms that. And then the third is at a handoff to the front office receptionist. So when you have that system in place and the patient understands that, yes, I have an issue and this needs to be addressed today, then they are more likely to continue and accept the treatment versus, sometimes they say, I just need to talk to my spouse and I'll call you back. Well, sometimes you just lose that patient. So that's the first step. Give permission. The second step for the doctor is calibrate. We mentioned before, calibrate with your team on your treatment philosophy. A simple way to do that is create time in your schedule where you come together as a team. Bring in some very simple cases for the team to see. Explain why you chose the treatment that you recommended to the patients, and then bring in other cases and let them create a treatment plan and calibrate to see how close are they to what you would suggest, and then give them some tweaks or give them some suggestions of how you see a treatment plan when you look at x-rays or when you look at things in the mouth. So that collaboration is what's going to give them the vision or the visibility through your eyes, right? And the last thing is keep an open communication channel, right? You got to make sure you create this environment where the team is comfortable coming to you and sharing their experiences, what works, what doesn't, right? Where they feel comfortable and what they might need to feel comfortable. So having that open communication makes a big difference. And I always tell either hygienists or assistants, look at the doctor as your peer. You are there to bring up that practice together. You are running this together. And the only way to do it is when you hear each other. And that comes into when you have an open communication in the office.
Got it. That makes a whole lot of sense. I do have just one question. It's totally off the cuff, but I thought of it. I was having a conversation today with the dental intelligence team, and I'm on their morning huddle panel at Intellicon, and we were just meeting today to talk about that. But the question I had for you is what do you think the dentist's role or the doctor's role should be in a morning huddle? I'm curious your thoughts on this.
It's funny you say we love dental intelligence and working with them. Data is super important. That's on our maturity model, the fourth level of practice maturity is when they use data driven decision-making process, right? They look at the numbers all the time to say, yeah, I need to pivot this way to make it even more successful. So just want to throw that out to you. But morning huddle, number one, each team member has a responsibility to come in and kind of share information. When you have technology like dental intelligence, it kind of helps you with kind of gathering all that information for you. But the main thing for the doctor is to be their uplifter for the day. Everybody comes in with their own things, their personal life and whatnot. We teach that when you come to that practice, you are a new person because every patient feels your energy. Every patient understands that something is off or you're on point. So the role of the doctor is to inspire the team to be on their best that day and to continue seeing the vision of why they're there, right? And why they're taking the steps to create that vision for the practice.
Gotcha. That was a great answer. Like I said, it just came off the cuff because I had that question today. So some people are very, very, unaware. Some doctors are very unaware that what their role should be during the huddle, whether it should be multiple team members involved, whether it should be round robin, so I was just curious your thoughts on that. So, all right. Next speaking point is what strategies do you have to enhance the level of collaboration with the team?
Well, that's kind of what we went over before, right? Making sure that your team each team member understands what is their role, what's their responsibility, what are the metrics that they evaluate their own performance in. So when you have that clearly defined, you have a team that's going in the right direction and collaborating together. So, and then the last thing is when the team understands your treatment clinical philosophy, they cannot, and I want to emphasize the fact that every team member, not just the clinical team members, but the front office receptionist, no matter how many positions are covered in the front, everyone needs to understand how you practice. The importance of that is every team member needs to be able to explain to the patient, why should they choose you versus a dentist next door? Why should they pay more here or not use their insurance and pay for the services out of pocket and choose you? Well, if your front office receptionist, for example, does not understand why you practice the way you do or how that decision comes about, she can't back you up. She cannot be your brand ambassador to let the patients know you should stay here because. So it's super important that every team member understands their roles and understand your clinical philosophy.
Got it. So I know we just talked about dental intelligence. I know we're both fans of that product. Obviously, with Dental Intel, you have a lot of data that's being tossed at the practice, almost sometimes too much data. And that's why Dental Intel is a little bit of an interesting mechanism for practices to use, because some people think there's too much information, don't use it effectively. So I'm curious, there are so many KPIs that a practice can look at to see how their practice is doing. What KPIs do you think, we'll talk about doctors should understand, as well as team members that they're being held accountable for to identify trends in the practice?
Oh my gosh, this is like a totally different episode that we should do for sure, because I love talking about it. But just to keep it short, it's important for those doctors, and I have to say this first, but for those doctors that feel like numbers are burdensome, and there are a lot of those doctors out there, and the reason why numbers are burdensome is because the software that they use is designed so you can input information, not so much take out information. It is challenging to print out those reports. If you don't know what you're doing, it takes hours to print out reports and then try to understand what those reports that you just printed out means, right? And so when you have the new technology like dental intelligence, or even Curve software also has the data analytics in the software, you're able to visually see your practice numbers, a dashboard that tells you, I believe it's every 15 minutes that it just updates the information for you. You're able to see the health of your practice at any moment. So this way you're able to also understand, where do I need to pivot at the time where the trends might be going the wrong direction, versus waiting till the end of the year where you might be printing out reports and then trying to figure out what those reports mean. So if you have the ability to simplify your way of understanding your practice health, take a look at the technology that's out there to help with that. We also tell doctors that if that's not an option at this time, have your team members own certain metrics that they can follow and that they can be responsible for. So for the dental hygienist, for example, knowing your periodontal percentage is very important, right? The health of the hygiene department not just depends on the perio percentage, but also depends on the mix of services that you're doing. Understanding that your daily financial goals are met. That's something that every hygienist, any provider needs to know. Did I do what I'm supposed to do, and not just have a busy schedule, but at the end of the day, I wasn't really productive? But was my schedule is set in such a way that I either reached my goal or overexceeded my goal? So understanding what the perio percentage means. Is my department in 30 to 35%, which is a healthy number, or am I below 15, which is I need really serious attention right now, and how can we get the health of hygiene department on track? Right? As far as the doctor, one of the biggest ones is, again, understanding your financial health. Why those numbers are important. So let's take a look. Like in this era, there's PPO providers, right? Or the practices that accept insurance. It's important to know, like, how much are you discounting your fees to third parties, right? Keeping that percentage at or below about 15% of your total production. So this will give you a better visibility of which insurance ultimately you might want to keep, or you just want to stay away from, or, not be networked with anymore, to gain that practice health and grow the practice in the direction that it should be growing. So that's why it's important to understand your numbers, and having the practice profit and loss sheet from the accountant is not the same thing as understanding practice health, right? Because when you use the KPIs, for example, if I'm looking at the DI dashboard, I can see the data in much more depth than what you get from the accountant. So I'm able to make decisions properly based on data of where do I need to pivot and how do I bring the practice to a much healthier status than where it is today.
Got it. Okay.
That was a long-winded answer.
No, that was great. I mean, look, I think there's so many KPIs that practices look at, and I think when they hear what they should focus on, look, I know every dentist knows how many new patients they get. Okay. That's a number that dentist knows. Dentists should know, and they do know, but they don't know the other KPI, which is how many patients are leaving the practice on a monthly basis and going somewhere else. So to me, there are certain numbers you have to know, which is why I was curious what your thought was there. And then in terms of the write-offs from insurance companies, I like looking at that as a marketing expense rather than a write-off, because basically you're taking less money to bring the patient into your practice. If you're not taking insurance, you've got to spend the money on marketing anyway. So I like looking at that as a marketing expense rather than, the number of write-offs that you're doing. That's the way I look at things as a business owner. Now fortunately I was not into insurances like that, so I didn't have to worry about those write-offs there. The last thing I know we wanted to cover was, what is the impact that all of these things that we talked about, and I think you called it a partnership, what is the positive impact the partnerships has on the bottom line? What supposedly is going to happen? What have you seen from practices that you've given this system to? Talk about that.
I'm going to give back to the analogy that we started with. As a doctor, and because you were there before, you have so many hats that you wear and so many areas of focus that you need to be directing your attention to. So when you have this relationship with your team established and the foundation is very strong, it reduces the stress off of the doctor, right? It provides also an ability to create exceptional customer experience on a consistent basis for the patient, which is what organically grows your practice at the end. It makes the team feel valued and empowered because they know they have a say. They know where their position is and how they can improve and be better as well. This is also an opportunity where you will see that increased treatment acceptance rates, increased diagnosis percentage or co-diagnosis percentage, and ultimately increase in practice growth and profitability. That's all it comes down to. Finally, you reach the point where you're not burdensome by being a CEO of your practice, but you actually enjoy coming in every day to do what you went to school to do, which is deliver that exceptional experience to the patients and comprehensive care to the patients.
Got it. So before we switch to the lightning round Q&A, I know we're going to give your contact information and special offer to the viewers and listeners. But is there anything else that you wanted to touch base on that we didn't cover yet?
I wanted to give one suggestion to the doctors that are listening. And that suggestion is, in order for a company to be successful, and you know this by observing big companies, like Apple, for example, in order for them to be successful, they have a team that works with them. And I'm not talking about the team that works with you, like clinical team in the front office. I'm talking about the practice management team. So you have an accountant, you have a marketing agency. Do not be afraid to reach out to companies that are experts in growing practices, in practice management, like coaching or consulting companies. Take that step, because 1% in it deviating or changing the direction of your practice can make a huge difference on the ultimate goal or vision that you have for your practice. That one little step can ease your burden, and it can create much more flourishing practice. So don't be afraid to reach out. I know a lot of doctors that we work with, they are brilliant. But again, because there's so much on their plate, the focus is not there to bring up what they can ultimately create in the practice.
Great. This was really good content. Thank you for sharing. So I want to switch to my lightning round Q&A for those that had not listened to this before. I use an app actually called Poddex. Those can see it here. It's all based on the business questions called the hustle. And they're all appropriate questions on just things that you may have come across in your business life. So first question, the point of this is to answer them really quickly, not go into long drawn out answers. Okay. So what kind of culture exists within your organization and how did you establish it?
The first word that comes is love, love and peace. And that's open communication and understanding each other.
What motivates you?
Learning, continuously be curious and learning a lot, listening to podcasts.
Okay, that's good. That's good. What is one skill or trait you feel is imperative to be successful?
Determination. You have to stay consistent and be determined to reach your goals.
Do you keep a journal and does it help you?
I take notes on my phone, but I do not keep an actual journal, like a notebook journal, but I do keep notes.
And I keep notes on my phone, in the notes section on my iPhone. I think I have over 250 different notes. I mean, I'm constantly putting notes in there. So,
Me too.
It works well for me. So has anyone in your network been important to your journey?
Everybody. Honestly, I've been blessed with mentors and people surrounding me to guide me in the right direction. And this is where I am today. So I'm very grateful.
Okay. Who have you looked out for advice or mentorship?
Honestly, I don't have one person because I'm curious in so many ways, but I have to say my husband is number one. He is brilliant. And I love listening. I'm a podcast junkie. So I know there's brilliant minds out there that come on podcasts and share their experiences. That's where I gain my insight and kind of do my research after I hear them talk.
Perfect. Got that one. Interesting. You mentioned podcasts. Do you have a favorite business podcast?
Raving Patients podcast.
Well, I appreciate that. But what other podcasts do you like for business?
The Better Dental Life. That's another one I enjoy. Julie Parker is another one. She's from Australia, but she has very good content as well. She's also a dental consultant. Those are the first couple that come to mind.
Okay. All right. I'm glad you mentioned mine in there. So that's good. Do you make a to-do list every day, weekly? When do you do it if you do it?
I have a to-do list on a daily basis. And again, I use my phone. I have my iPhone. I put everything on there and it just reminds me of what to do and when to do it.
What is the smartest investment you've ever made?
My education, the time for learning. It's number one for me.
What do you think is your unique skill that has helped you become successful?
Connecting with people, communication, and staying consistent.
All right. 2 more questions. What have you read online recently that has inspired you?
I listened to a YouTube recording or TED Talk by Simon Sinek and him describing the golden circle, I believe it's called, where you describe your why, how businesses become successful by describing their why first and then going into the what and the how.
And the last question, which I ask a lot of the guests, and it could be either business or personal, is what is one subscription you can't live without?
Right now, I'm going to answer Amazon. It simplifies, life in so many ways. And our motto and our objective is to simplify and streamline businesses. We simplify and streamline my life through Amazon.
That's good. I agree with that. So Prime membership is really what you're talking about. And as well as, and the other answer I get a lot of is Netflix. Those are the two most common answers I have on that question. So that was great. You did a really good job of answering them quickly. So we got through a lot of questions. Tell people how they can reach out to you. I know you had an offer you wanted to throw out. So please do that as we end the podcast.
So they can reach us at convergedental.com. I'm sure there's going to be a link below this video. So click on the link. What I would like to offer for your listeners, the first 20 listeners that will contact us with the word Dr. Tao, will get a free discovery session for 30 minutes for us to even, see how we can help you.
Okay. So you want them to use the word Dr. Tao. If they use raving patients, I'm sure that's okay too. But you want them to use, you want to let them know you heard about them on this podcast, and you'll do a discovery session for the listeners. So,
correct.
And what's the best way if they have questions just for you? do you want to give your contact information so they can reach out to you?
Sure. Ella at convergedental.com. You can also go to all of our we have social platforms everywhere. So if you Google or go to Converge Dental, you'll find us. Just to find out more information about how we help practices, Instagram, there's a lot of reels you can see in recommendations there as well. But the best way is reach out to Ella at Converge Dental, and I'll be more than happy to help with any guidance or questions you might have.
Well, this was great. Great content, great information provided to the listeners and viewers. So thank you so much, Ella, for joining me today. Guys, if you like the episode, please let your colleagues know. Please share it. Please review us. Please like us. Do everything you can to help promote the episode. Put it on your social channels. Tag me. Tag Ella. Do whatever you need to. But I would really appreciate it. We're really doing well. We're in almost through 6 seasons of content. So if you do like it, you have a lot of content to catch up on. But I do it here because of you. I neglected to thank the sponsors at the beginning, so I'm going to thank them now, both Dental Intelligence and the Doc Site, for their support, allowing me to come to you guys every week into your inbox. And Ella, again, thank you so much for joining me today. And as I always end these podcasts, remember, your reputation matters. Until the next episode, we'll talk to you guys soon.